Hello and welcome to a new show in the Pop Life universe here at TIR, Dudes in the Cheap Seats. We experimented with this a little bit last year and we had a good time. So I'll be teaming up with Parallax Views host J.G. Michael to give independent B-movie cinema the respect it deserves. Often when people hear the term B-movie, they discard it as a lesser film, cheaply crafted and sleazy, an incoherent mess. And while that might be the case for some of these so bad they're good films, that isn't the case for all of them. Much like any other form of media, tastemakers decide what movies, music, or visual art is worthwhile and what is trite. This is where capitalist realism really comes into play. As much as we'd like to believe ourselves to be individualistic, we often fall prey to the stereotype that projects made outside of the big studios aren't going to be up to par. But it is the independent, innovative spirit that has actually created tools that would be adopted at the major studio level. There was a time where independent film was the best training ground for young actors, directors, producers, and of course, practical effects makers. This show, for me, is a love letter to all the late night, low budget action, horror, thriller movies I watched as a kid that reminded me that there were great stories left to tell that weren't dominated by the Hollywood hit machine. Hopefully, this show will turn you onto some new movies to add to your watch list. Before I bring in JG, I just want to remind you that TIR is listener funded. And if you enjoy shows like this and all the irreverent madness that we produce here on TIR, then become a patron. For as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year, you can not only make sure we stay on air, but you can access our patron-only champagne rooms and call-in shows, get free issues of the Crisis Papers. After the main show tonight, for patrons and paid YouTube subscribers, we're going to watch the movie in question, Video Violence. So if you want to join us, become a patron. There is a link in the description of this show. Now, on to what we're here to discuss, a movie that I feel very confident a lot of people watching right now probably haven't seen, Video Violence. In 1987, Gary Cohen's Video Violence emerged from the world of shot-on-video horror, a realm often dismissed as cheap, amateur, or disposable. But when we revisit it today, the film feels like a strange kind of prophecy. Its grainy VHS look and stiff performances aren't flaws to gloss over. They're the very texture that makes it resonate. Long before movies like The Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity found gold in found footage, Cohen was using the rawness of consumer video equipment to create something that looked disturbingly real, almost like you stumbled across some late-night local access program, or worse, a home recording of an actual crime. At the time, shot-on-video movies were the lowest rung of cinema, too crude for theaters and too strange for TV. But today, in an era where TikTok and YouTube have blurred the lines between entertainment, authenticity, and exploitation, that rough VHS aesthetic feels more relevant than ever. Video Violence is more than just schlock horror. It is a window into a bygone era, neighborhood video stores before Blockbuster, DIY filmmakers pushing against industry barriers, and a media ecosystem where people circulated images not through billion-dollar streaming platforms, but through hand-to-hand tape trading. The movie reminds us that culture is always shaped by who controls the means of production, and Cohen, with a tiny budget, limited gear, and even just 8 hours in an editing bay, shows us what happens when someone insists on making art by any means necessary. So tonight on Dudes in the Cheap Seats, we're talking about Video Violence, what it says about media, horror, and the politics of images. And stick around, because after the main show, we're hosting a watch party where you can see for yourself a no-budget VHS horror film, what it can tell us about capitalism, technology, and community, just as much as it does about blood and gore. Now, to have this discussion with me, please welcome the host of Parallax Views and B-movie aficionado. I take that back. Film aficionado, J.G. Michael.
What's up? I got my copy of Video Violence right here.
The first
It
thing
just sold out too. So I was lucky I got it when I did. I got it a few months ago.
do you think video violence resonates more in an era, like I said in the introduction, where people like us do shows on these low budgets? We don't have sets we do them out of. Most of us do these shows out of our homes, with either camera phones or very the front facing camera on your computer. Also the rise of found footage being a genre in and of itself. Does that make a movie like this feel more real or more relevant to you?
I don't know. Usually, one of the criticisms I see of this movie, and I think it's kind of a weak tea criticism, is that it feels quaint today. Its idea about like, oh, a town of local yokels who become obsessed with making snuff films for themselves and sort of become a cult, making snuff films. A lot of people will say, oh, that's quaint in an age where you can go on a kick stream and see Rampage Jackson's son beat the crap out of someone for no apparent reason.
I mean, what was that? Was that real or was that kayfabe?
That was real, yeah.
That was real. Why did he do it?
They got into like an altercation beforehand, and then, well, so the wrestler Psycho Stu hit him with a bear can before the show, just thinking that he was being playful or whatever. And then, people kept texting Rampage Jackson on Roger Jackson's separate stream that was separate from the show, and kept saying, oh, you got punked. And Raja just got really angry. And another wrestler said, oh, you should do a running during the match and show him receipts, which in wrestling terminology means beat the guy up for real.
Yeah. A receipt.
So he was urged on by one of the wrestlers.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I figured you knew the real deal if it was really an ass.
I mean, it was really bad. The dude ended up in Raj had just like body slammed him and then started punching him in the face. It's pretty brutal, the footage out there. But the Psycho Stu ended up in like the hospital. He was in I don't know, like not in a coma, but he was knocked out cold. So apparently he's making a recovery, but he's still not in good condition. But my point in bringing that up was, there's brutality and atrocity is always a click away now. And that wasn't true in the days of video violence.
No, that's actually that's a really good point. In watching video violence, I did watch it today. I tried to watch it last night, but I fell asleep. By the way, not a good movie to fall asleep on. Because when you wake up in the middle of it, gross. But watching a movie like this, the first thing that hit me was Late Night with the Devil.
Because the Shudder movie.
This is a Shudder movie, but it's a modern film that was very highly regarded. But it's a film like other movies I've seen, like House of the Devil, where there's a goal of the filmmaker to make the movie look older and of a certain era. If you remember House of the Devil, they went so far as to even have the actors and everybody even have like these 80s hairstyles, to the point where I was questioning if it was a newer film or not. And this is very much, as you guys who will join us for the watch party will see, this is very much a film that is shot on video. There's parts of it where I think they have a boom mic. There's other parts of it where you can tell they're just picking up whatever the microphone has. And I don't know how true this is, because I tried to find information about this, but it feels like this was not shot on even a professional video camera. This feels like it was shot on like your mom and dad's home video recorder.
I don't know what kind of camera it was shot. I think they used a professional camera. I could be wrong, but I mean, I will say this. I think Gary Cohen himself has said it was a budget of $6. He takes it in stride when he talks about this film.
I would love to know how much it really was. Because also when you're doing these things outside of a place like Hollywood, like first and foremost, people have to understand the big reason why you moved to Los Angeles is not just proximity to the industry, but it's being in a town with a bunch of people that want to be involved with the industry.
Yeah,
So
whereas in this one, he had to. I mean, most of the people involved in this movie are people that were involved in like local stage plays. It was filmed in
Jersey,
Bayonne, New Jersey, Bayonne, wherever that is.
suburbs. And also the premise of the movie I thought was kind of interesting.
It's very much of its time. It's during a time when, I mean, there was still people were paranoid in the suburbs, right? Oh my God, my neighbor is a Satanist, or what? The snuff film thing has always been like a huge,
yeah.
like moral panic. So it plays into that, but it also sort of makes fun of it lightly pokes fun at our obsession with violence rather than like sex, right? Like we're prudish about sex, but we're cool with violence. The movie actually got made because Gary Cohen worked at a video store
Yes.
as video store clerk, and a parent wanted to rent out the movie I Dismember Mama, and she said, "What's this movie rated?" And he said, "Oh, it's like rated R, and it probably has a lot of violence." She says, "Does it have nudity though?" He says, "No." "Oh, good. My kids can watch it then." And that's
See,
how he got the idea for it.
I found another interview that said it wasn't I Dismember Mama, because I
Oh,
Dismember Mama,
really?
it's another film that is not. I'll have to look it up. But when I saw the I Dismember Mama, it's like, why would you show that to your child? But it's another movie from 1972, and he wasn't sure if it had nudity.
Okay.
And when he goes, I'm not sure, because it was an R-rated film. And the woman said, "Oh, okay, well then that's fine as long as it doesn't have nudity."
Still
But
the
he knew,
same sort of
yeah,
basic
but
story.
same thing. It was a violent film. And then he was like, "Well, you're just gonna let your kid watch random violence like that, and you have no problem with it? Just you're afraid of a nipple? Like that seems to be a problem." So he
They
makes this
even
movie.
recreate that scene, and the
He
movie in
re-
question they use is actually I think it's one of the first SOV movies, Blood Cult. That's how much
yes,
of a nerd I am.
he did use Blood Cult,
Yeah,
and he used a toddler instead of the small child that it was that he actually was approached by. To make it more kind of insane, I guess. I think he
right.
felt using the toddler instead of using it's like a 6-year-old.
I
But
mean, there was a whole moral panic about horror films at this time too that people have to remember. I think it was Geraldo did a whole show on horror movies, '88, and he had Terry O'Quinn from The Stepfather and Richard Rubenstein, the producer of Dawn of the Dead, and even little Danielle Harris when she was just a child actor in Halloween 4. They were like debating doctors and psychologists that were saying these are ruining our youths. So that was only a year after this. Geraldo did that special on like, is horror movie filmmaking destroying the children?
which is funny because I don't think that conversation is had anymore, because we don't look at horror as something frightening as much as we look at it as a different type of entertainment. And this is kind of good. It's another question I wanted to ask you. How does video violence kind of anticipate the rise of found footage horror in today's obsession with authentic, shaky, raw images?
Yeah, I don't know what I can add to that other than like the obvious, right? I
Mhm.
mean, there's sort of like found footage precursors before this, Cannibal Holocaust being,
Yeah.
probably the biggest one, but
But those are still shot on film.
right. Whereas this is shot on video. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and honestly, you know, a lot of the movie is them watching the tapes. So it's like literal found footage within the uh context of the plot. So I do think it sort of precedes that.
What does the film tell us about access to filmmaking before digital tools became cheap and widespread? How do you think Cohen's resourcefulness compares to today's creators who have iPhones and actually really good editing software, sometimes even free editing software?
I think it's incredible how far we've come. I mean, one of the reasons I really like this movie is as someone who went to film school, it's like this movie is like a little engine that could story.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, what people don't understand is I have seen the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the barrel, and video violence is not the bottom of the barrel.
Not even close.
Yeah, no, it really isn't. I mean, you really have to watch a lot of films to understand that.
Mhm.
Like, there's companies out there. I'm not bashing them, but companies like Sterling Entertainment or Tempe Video, J.R. Bookwalter's outfit, that release a lot of movies, and they, you know, Sterling Entertainment has released like 6 movies called Axe Grinder and Camp Blood. And I'm not bashing anyone involved with those films, but because I know some of those people and I respect them in a way, and I will explain why. But a lot of those sort of movies are made to fill shelf space, to get on streaming websites. It's a business. They're creating product, or what we would today call content, right? This movie isn't that. It's a lot more ambitious. And one of the weird things is I think a lot of people don't understand this movie is not a straight horror movie either. It's very much dark comedy and it's satire. I would actually say, if you were asking me about precursors to the found footage movie, I think this is a precursor to that. But I also think it's funny. I always tell people the only way you can watch video violence is if you watch its precursor. And I tell people its precursor is John Waters' Pink Flamingos, or early John Waters movies. Yeah, I think it's very similar to early John Waters movies. Non-professional actors, very much into the camp aesthetic. It's actually, I would say it's like it's the bastard spawn of John Waters and Herschel Gordon Lewis, the godfather of gore. That's how I look at it.
Interesting.
It's a very funny movie. I think the ending is hysterical.
I mean, I definitely think that they're poking fun at everything. And I also think even they're poking fun with the killers, right? The killers are just kind of wacky, in my opinion.
Right.
And the gore, because I think at this point, horror isn't scary. Like, I'm tired of watching horror documentaries, and I've watched way too many, where people always have to talk about fear. And I'm like, look, dude, if you're talking about Jason 8 and fear comes out of your mouth, you're lying. You didn't go to that movie for fear. You went to that movie to cheer. By 85, you're cheering. Freddy brings in the cheer, right? We're not, the jump scares don't do anything. Most of those movies don't even have jump scares, right? I
think it depends on who you are, but
if you're
like a little kid, if you're like 10 years old and you snuck it out,
it's your first movie. Yeah. Okay, look, if it's your first movie, then there's a lot of things that are scary if it's your first movie, right? Ninja 3 scared me because I watched it when I was like 7 and there was like blood. Right. But no, it's not a scary movie, and I'll never put it in that category. But there's no way you're of a certain age and you're watching some of these movies by 1987 and talking about fear, because they're not even being made for fear. They're being made for cheer. And to me, this is one of those films that really leans into this is what you want, this is what you get. My favorite John Lydon line from Public Image Limited, which is, you want gore, we're going to give it to you. You want an insane plot just so people can get murdered, we're going to give it to you.
There's another reason, by the way, I make the John Waters comparison, is because Waters has always been obsessed with like the small town or American grotesque. And that's sort of what this film is also doing. In addition to the fact that, like I said, it's cheap DIY. So if you were to go back to early Waters, like Pink Flamingos, Mondo Trasho, Multiple Maniacs, the really early stuff, I mean, I see a lot of parallels. I don't know if you do, but
I'd have to go back and watch that early Divine stuff.
Yeah.
Which is actually literally, not even trying to be funny, but it is on my list of things to go back and watch. I did want to watch Pink Flamingos and I found it on Amazon. So I was like, oh, I kind of want to watch this again. The film,
a life-changing movie for me.
Really? We'll put a pin in that because that's another topic for another time. The film's title and themes revolve around the rental of violent images. How does this reflect, and you mentioned it a little bit, the satanic panic over video nasties and media corruption, and how might it parallel today's debates over streaming, YouTube radicalization, and true crime consumption?
Well, I think the parallels are pretty, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's pretty obvious. Like, we're arguing. I keep telling people the culture wars are always the same. We argue about the same stuff, 20, 40 years later. I mean, look what happened when Terrifier came out, right? There was a moral panic around that, So, I mean, Kirk Cameron was losing his mind. Evangelicals were going crazy over it. So I think we see a lot of parallels there. I think this is interesting because it hits different types of paranoia that were afloat in the 80s. You know, what if my neighbor is part of a cult? What if snuff films are real?
Yeah.
What if horror movies are just sensitizing us to violence? It's hitting like multiple different, and the whole dark side of suburbia, dark side of small town America paranoia. Like it's hitting all these different types of paranoia, and it's doing so in a very playful way, and there's a lot of humor in it.
I think that's something that we don't hear people talk about to me enough when we think about these movies and the fear that was going on in the nation of this idea that there were these dark forces that lurked in the safest places, which is really what fear is about. And I think that kind of gets into my whole point about like these movies really weren't scary. Like there's a lot of things that are not frightening, but in the 80s, they were supposed to be frightening. Ozzy Osbourne, not frightening. The Ultimate Sin, Diary of a Madman, Blizzard of Oz. None of these records are frightening. If you read the lyrics of them, not frightening. But if you were to go back and watch a news program, it was Ozzy more so than a character like Marilyn Manson that was front and center of this is what you should be afraid of. It is these images that is going to make your child evil. And this is years before we get video games that look like Resident Evil. We're still playing with pixelated images.
It's almost like, Americans need this stuff to exist just so they would have something to fill the void in their boring lives.
Oof.
Now, there's always something to culture war about. I know that's brutal how I put it, and I was trying to be funny, but it's like this idea that, this movie is corrupting our youth. We hear it every, it's always just regenerated over and over.
My Friday the 13th mug. But I don't. It's frustrating because there's always a big bad,
right, in
the culture war. And once people are like, look, it's not heavy metal. This is just ridiculous. These guys are Dungeons and Dragons was a big bad for a long time.
Yeah.
And then rap music was rap music is still kind of a big bad in certain corners of the world. But this movie ain't it. It's not gonna. What was the movie? Was it Centipede 2, where the whole movie is about Human Centipede 2, where the guy watches Human Centipede 1 and wants to make his own Human Centipede?
Yeah.
Like that's not happening. As much as people want it to happen, it's not happening. Like what was Hitler watching? What was he listening to? What video games was he playing? Like you don't need those things. These things are for most people are escape. Because it is so ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the thing. Someone said to me, I was reading a review on like badmovies.org, and they're like, this movie is so ridiculous because you have to buy into this premise that an entire town of people would become so corrupted that they would just want to make snuff films for themselves. And I'm like, you're taking the film way too seriously. No, like it exists in its own universe. It's like Pink Flamingos. Like, there is not a family like Divine's family in real life. Okay. Like it's a grotesque caricature of America. Like that's what video violence is. I'm not saying it's like, it's clunkily done in some ways, I guess you could argue. It's not like sophisticated, like super sophisticated satire, but it's satire. And I don't understand people that like would watch this movie and like dissect it every little bit. Like there's certain things you're just supposed to be like, oh, the two main characters are idiots from New York. And they don't think to themselves, we should go to the state police. They're caricatures of dumb suburbia, And the town itself is a caricature of the American grotesque of small town America.
Because isn't that kind of the joke in most horror movies?
Yeah.
You can end this by just calling the police.
Well, you can't call the local police in this one because
the local police is supposed to be in on it too, but that's kind of a joke in tons of movies. We'll just call the cops. This will be over in like 5 seconds.
If you think about it, like even the way we're talking about it, there's so much there's like a cult thing going on, there's snuff films, There's half the scenes in the video rental store. I mean, it's an interesting movie because most people would have just been like, "Oh, let's make like a Friday the 13th ripoff in the woods." You know, this is a
Mhm.
much more ambitious film than people give it credit for.
I think this is from look, I think this movie for this man is something he really wanted to make. I
Yeah,
think the people that put it together are like, "Hey, let's make a movie about this thing that we understand, which is A, working in a video store, and B, suburbia."
right,
Bayonne, New Jersey is suburbia. So
right.
let's talk about the
It's the parking
mundane.
lot for New York.
Yeah, let's talk about the banality of living in one of these places, kind of like the Burbs was
Right.
to me, right? Um, and make it crazy because that's what's funny. That to me, that's the joke, right? The simplicity, the boringness of suburbia hides an underbelly of evil, and that's where we get a lot of this satanic panic. That daycare center that's been there for 30 years is harboring a child fuck cult. And it's like, no, it's not. It's just a daycare center. And why am I listening to a 4-year-old say that they flushed an elephant down the toilet in the court transcript for a trial that goes on for 10 years? This is ridiculous. But we have to keep in mind, as much as we say this is ridiculous, that was a period of time that most people put their fingers in their ears and try to forget. And the things that happened after that period of time, like forced memories in all those housewives where they were like, hey, I was just told that my parent sexually assaulted me all of a sudden. And the millions of dollars of malpractice lawsuits that were had after the fact. I mean, Michelle Remembers is an entire book launched on forced memories of a traumatic loss of was a stillborn child, I think she had, or a miscarriage. So I think when we go back to this time, most people kind of just shake their head and go, people were stupid back then because pre-internet. It's like, were they that dumb?
I mean, they're
Or
just as dumb now. They listen to
yeah.
Jordan Peterson.
Right
Not
on.
joking. People like Peterson are what we would have. He would have been like a crazy person on Unsolved Mysteries, like some weird local guru figure, like local Rasputin figure. But instead, we get Jordan Peterson, a YouTube star. I mean, it's times don't change as much as people think.
Maybe that's my point. Maybe it's a long-winded way of saying I don't think that time is so far away from where we are today when you think about moral panics and fear. Maybe the fear isn't Satanism, but there are these fears that kind of don't exist. Like,
Well, there's similar affairs today, right? Like, I mean, throughout the early 20th century, there was the white slave trafficking conspiracy theories. We see the revival of that today
mhm.
with
Well,
QAnon.
we changed the name of sex trafficking. It used to be
Yeah,
pimping and pandering, and now we call
like
it sex trafficking.
this may be controversial, but I understand why people are focused on the Epstein stuff, and they should be.
Yeah.
But like in general, most victims of sex trafficking are not pretty young white girls. I mean, that's the exception to the rule. But one of the reasons Epstein is homed in on in a lot of ways, beyond all the political stuff and the power players, is that it involves young white girls.
Mhm.
But a lot of the trafficking that actually happens in this world, and I've talked to experts on this, it's like black, brown, those are the biggest victims of it, but we don't talk about that because the sort of the long shadow of the white slave trafficking conspiracy theory hangs over us. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, you could find those conspiracy theories in like the 30s if you look back at newspapers from back then. You know, there's probably like grains of truth to that stuff. Like Epstein would be the grain of truth, right? But we keep repeating a lot of this, a lot of the same folk stories get or folk conspiracy theories get handed down through the ages and repeat it over and over again.
Hmm. How do you think the culture of neighborhood video stores foster different relationships to media compared to today's corporate streaming platforms?
I mean, video violence was a huge success on the video. I'm not joking. It was a
Yeah.
very big success on the video rental market. I would go to mom and pop shops and see it. And that's in like the dying days of it. I remember I was like fascinated by the cover art. You
The
know,
cover art's actually pretty cool.
yeah, because you have the bloody hand putting the VHS in, and it just says, "Video violence when renting is not enough." You know,
I was reading something about the movie, and apparently one of the companies that the guy was trying to get the movie bought by said, if you come up with your video art, your box art, we'll put it out, which I found funny because that's kind of where we are today with things like music, for example, where, you know, if you have a following and you have recorded everything, we'll put your record out and maybe we'll get you on a bigger festival than you could get yourself on independently. And that's what we'll do. But you have to do all the legwork, and you know we're not going to do as much as you think we are, other than distribute
you mean with the streaming stuff?
just music in general. Like if you were to sign a record deal, there's a lot of times they want you to have more. I shouldn't say a lot of
There's
times.
an equivalent of all this stuff today. I will say that. In
You have to have a following. When before
I
there was
see.
things like developmental deals,
Right.
right? If you made a good film, maybe it's like, okay, well, this is pretty good, but let's get you in a proper studio and give you some proper equipment and reshoot, you know, some of this stuff, or let's re-edit it or whatever, right? But it's like, oh, you have a finished product? Okay. we'll throw some cool art over it and throw it out to all these stores, and you know, we'll all make a bunch of money. And if you already made it and we're just going to stamp our name on it, you know, it's less of an expense for us.
I was gonna say, what's weird is we're almost in a new period of all this stuff. Like the amount of low budget stuff, or no budget, or micro budget movies I see on Tubi is kind of insane. And I know filmmakers have gotten money from getting their stuff on Tubi. You know, it's similar to what happened with stuff like Video Violence or Boarding House or Truth or Dare, which is Truth or Dare is probably the other really ambitious SOV of the time, shot on video horror of the time. There's not many of them that are really ambitious, but what's interesting is like Tubi has become like the second wave of this in a weird way. A lot of the micro budget directors, including ones I mentioned, like Sterling Entertainment, have gone into like, well, we can sell the movies streaming on Tubi.
I have actually was friends with a dude that was in talks with putting together some Tubi movies, because there was a I don't want to, how do you say it? It was like a formula they had for like black cinema. And you know, he was coming in as a consultant for some people that were like mass producing black cinema, which I thought was kind of funny, because we were joking. Me and him were joking about a movie plot, and then he ended up going to meet with actual producers with some of the joke that we were talking about. They're like, "Oh, that sounds great. We can shoot it in this many." You know, that's, you know, to your point.
I wanted to go back to something because maybe it felt like I was going on a tangent when I mentioned the Epstein blah 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 blah. But what I was trying to get at was it's interesting. Paranoia about cults and they're coming after our children. You can see it even in movies in the 30s, right? Like cult paranoia with, you know, Edgar G. Ulmer's The Black Cat. I was wondering, you notice that, how that's like a reoccurring fear in American life? Like the cults are coming. The cults are coming.
Yeah, I think it really gets ramped up. I think the 60s are a crazy time.
Yes.
I think we have to admit the 60s are a crazy time, especially when it comes to cults and finding yourself, a certain amount of independence, deconstruction. We kind of joked about this last night watching Mad Max on a movie night, especially with the New Left and the Marcuses and Foucaults of the world. But I feel like we're back in an era of cults. We just call them different things now. We've politicized them in a way so we can feel better about ourselves and our cults and our cult-like figures. Jordan Peterson, to some degree, felt like a cult-like figure to me.
Right. Well, now they become like what they're multi-level marketing scams are the new cults.
Which is, you know, I don't know if you feel this way. To me, if you look at like the Alamo cult, right? They would have loved to be around today and been able to be multi-level marketing scams.
Yeah.
And not had to go the religious route. They could have had a little bit of Jesus, but a whole lot of marketing.
Right.
Oh, they would have loved that. They could have chilled on all the child labor had had they had
Well, that's
the
what a lot of that's what's weird, because the truth is a lot of cults are just about how can the leader get a lot of money and not have to work? Like
yeah,
it's not like what you see in video violence where it's like we're doing it for the love of the game. We just enjoy killing people on camera. It's art. Like that's why this movie is so funny. It's like an exaggeration of everything, all the paranoias of like 80s suburbia rolled into one. And you smoke it like a joint, which you should smoke a joint when you watch this movie.
at the very least. I
Yeah.
don't do anything, so I watched it stone cold sober. So
You know
maybe
what's
that's why
weird
I'm so
about this one?
curious.
I have to say this. It really is a weird movie amongst the SOV movies. So a lot of SOV movies essentially amount to gore reels. But this actually has what amounts to a coherent beginning, middle, and end.
It's not that
Like,
gory. I think the only thing people may not like about it, other than the look, but I feel like today the look isn't as off-putting as it was 40 years ago.
right,
I think what people have a problem with, if anything, is the sound.
right.
Because there's scenes where the sound's just uneven.
Yeah.
Sadly, the gentleman that made it, Gary Cohen, didn't have a chance to reshoot certain things, and with because it feels like at some point someone goes, "Oh, if you get one of those microphones
Right.
overhead, you can get better sound."
Right.
Because it opens up to just over there, and then then you can hear the movie a lot better. But it also is ridiculous in the kills because they're just killing anybody. It's not like they're trying to kill people no one's going to care about. They kill the
They're like
mailman.
cutting people up and turning them into bologna sandwiches.
It's like, dude, we killed the mailman.
I know you haven't watched it yet, but in a way, video violence manages to like top some of this because they do a whole. So, Video Violence 2, the exploitation, as it's called, is it's actually an anthology film. So it's
Ooh.
Yuki and I forget the other Howard hosting their own TV show, and they keep jamming the signals of different stations and playing their like talk show with it's like America's Funniest Home Videos, but with snuff films. Anyways, there's a whole I can't believe I just said that line. Anyways, there's a whole segment where they have a bunch of girls decide to send in their own homemade snuff video to Yuki and Howard. And their whole thing is you always show, women getting horribly murdered and you guys are chauvinists. We're going to show you how to do it to a man. So even the sequel ends up playing a bit with like some of the social commentary or not social commentary, but it satirizes like a lot of the tropes of the genre. And I think the first one does too.
Shot on video horror was often made outside of Hollywood's unions and studios. Is there something radical or perhaps exploitative about this form of DIY labor in filmmaking, in your opinion?
I mean, it comes out of the exploitation film sort of circles. So yeah,
but more so the exploitation of labor. Do you find exploitation of labor in this or not so much? I don't, because it's just so small.
I don't really either. I mean, I think this was like a labor of love for everyone involved. I mean, I don't think anyone expected Gary Cohen to like pay them a ton for this.
Yeah.
I mean, what is interesting is the acting in this. It's not good, but it's also not as bad as some other SOV movies because these people actually had like stage acting to their name. I mean,
you know what it feels like? You know what it feels like?
It's very earnest.
Yeah. Did you, if you say yes, I'm gonna believe you're lying to me. There were moments where there were things like on PBS back in the day or your UHF station that looked like this, like maybe local shows that the UHF station would put together, where you can tell people came from the theater world that were a part of it. That's what this felt like to me for the scenes where the husband and wife are talking, to your point about the earnestness of it. You can tell that whoever was doing it kind of, maybe they don't know about marks for video and movies because that's a whole different world, but they definitely understand how to speak loudly, which really helped. And they knew how to act. So the acting is a little stiff, but it's not. You can watch this. When I watched this movie, I was like, this is a movie. JG said it, and I'll say it again. It makes sense. It is extremely coherent. You may not care about the characters, but there is a plot. And that's more than I can say about a lot of horror movies that are shot with film.
Yeah, the joke I make with this one is Hollywood has done much worse for much more money. Like there's something, I mean, it's people look at me when I say I like this movie and they're like, how? Like, because they just look at the budget. And I've never looked at films just for their budget. Like I also don't look at I don't judge all films the same, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not watching Citizen Kane and comparing it to Video Violence or vice versa. It's a very charming little regional movie. And I think it's sad we don't get as much regional stuff now. You know, there's some people, my friend Justin, I think it's Seaman in Pittsburgh or in you know, around Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. He does these movies for Scream Team releasing called The Barn Part 1 and
Oh
2.
yeah. You're the one that helped me on
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
those are really fun movies, and people will be like, "Oh, but it's so low." But well, who cares? It's nice to see something that doesn't look like it was made on $100 million, and you know, and wasn't filmed in L.A. You know, there's something charming about a low budget regional movie.
Do we not appreciate that?
I
Which is,
do.
but no, but like not Jason and JG, but as a whole, as a society, why don't we appreciate what you're talking about? But we'll appreciate, you know, streamer X who has millions of followers playing video games with a very simplistic setup that they got at Guitar Center, you know, starter streamer kit in their bedroom. Why is that more acceptable than a person making film, a film, digital quality, HD? The Barn, it does not look like trash, right?
No, the Barn actually looks really good. Yeah.
So why do we appreciate that more than we appreciate someone sitting down, writing out a script, finding actors to agree to making? A lot of those movies they're still doing practical effects. Why do we appreciate the TikTok streaming aspect of things and not, you know, there's someone that is going to stand there with their camera phone and complain about something that's going to get more attention.
I sometimes think people just enjoy having the ability to like crap on people who actually did anything. Not to sound like Bill Hicks, but you know, you remember that Bill Hicks stand up where he like loses his mind. He's like, "Oh, you always interrupt me just to like destroy anyone who is doing anything or trying to do anything." I mean, I kind of feel that way with some of these movies where I'm like, I don't know, like most of you wouldn't have picked up a camera and tried to make like a whole coherent beginning, middle, and end movie. Why are you like making fun of this little New Jersey production?
You don't have to love it. I don't think
No.
we're saying you have to love it, but just to hate it to hate's sake.
Yeah.
Is it just easier?
It's easier, and I think it makes people feel good about themselves. I don't know. I mean, I just don't get it. Like I said, there's movies that Sterling and Tempe Video have put out, and like I said, not everything Sterling or Tempe has done is like the worst thing ever, or even bad. But they released a lot of stuff that was just filler for video shelves, and this is not filler for video shelves. There's actually like an ambition to it. So I don't understand why people lump it in with the filler stuff. I think Video Violence is a very interesting film, and I think I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but it does hit on very real themes that are interesting, and it makes fun of a lot of things. It pokes fun at the, you know, culture of the time and the zeitgeist. And that's like really ambitious for a movie made in Bayonne, New Jersey, shot on video, you know? And to me, it's like, I just admire it for that alone. I love it for that alone, to be honest.
I mean, that's Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's easier. Red. Shout out to Red. It's easier and makes people feel superior, I think.
That's what I was trying to say. I think it does make people feel. I mean, it's weird because like I think a lot of it is the Mystery Science Theater stuff really like taking off in the 90s, and everyone's like, that's why I hate the term so bad it's good. Like I don't know what that means, because a lot of movies that people call so bad they're good were just movies that were made for an ozoner audience. Ozoners being the people that went to drive-ins. That's the term that was used in the industry for people that went to drive-ins. those movies were attuned to a certain expectation, right? It wasn't, I mean, they had to hit certain beats. They weren't supposed to hit the same beats as a movie with Faye Dunaway. You know, they weren't supposed to be as restrained. So I don't know. The Mystery Science Theater thing is interesting too, because I know the guys that made that show actually like some of the films they
Crapped on.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting.
Well, there's a guy named Brendan Tenold that has a very Mystery Science-esque thing that he does with a lot of B-movie horror. And one of the things he does is he tends to end on a positive note, because some of these movies, even if you dig them, there's some ridiculous, funny bullshit in it, right? And you're riffing on the funny bullshit. But I think where Brendan Tenold, to me, is kind of a treasure in this world, and maybe it's because he's Canadian, he appreciates everything that you just said. Someone sat down and fucking made a movie. They wrote a script. They edited it. Editing is the worst. And this is editing before you could drop a video file in a program and make precision cuts, overdub easy. Like, this is editing where you're literally cutting tape and probably learning how to do it on the fly. So again, you don't have to love these movies for that, but the effort.
Yeah, but even this is different than that, I think, because like I said, and I mean, there's people that would admit this. My friend, the filmmaker Todd Sheets, will tell you he doesn't want people to watch his early films, you know, which you could have found on video shelves. And he's like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, it was just to make the movies and hopefully make like a little bit of money back, right? I don't think that's what Cohen was doing with this. I think he was just trying to. Cohen, I don't actually think wanted to make a horror movie. It's just, it was either this or a triple X movie. And he didn't want to really make either, but he's like, well, I can make a horror movie, but I can actually just use it as a way to make a dark comedy on something I find funny. This idea of people coming into my rental store, renting violent movies, but being afraid of sex. You know? What I'm saying
no
is,
one has sex in the movie. They like kill the women before they don't even have sex with them. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, this movie is like surprisingly more. There's more passion in it than 99% of SOV horror titles. That's what makes it a really weird movie, because I don't think you can take that away from it. Like, it's a very interesting little film, because very few, I mean, the only one I can think of that was ambitious, and it wasn't even thematically ambitious and satirical in the way this one is Truth or Dare, 1986, which is one of Elijah Wood's favorite movies. We'll have to watch that sometime, but this was like surprisingly, when I first saw it, I was like blown away. So I was like, this dude made a whole 90-minute feature, beginning, middle, and end, a whole story, not just gore reels, and there's a lot of humor in it. I mean, I laughed out loud during the blood cult scene where, you know, she's like, oh, does it have nudity in it? No. Oh, great. I can show it to the kids. You know? I laughed out loud at the end when Lisa Cohen, who I'm assuming is like the wife or daughter of Gary Cohen, she plays Joanna in this. I know this is spoilers, but you know, where she's going on about, we make our own down home snuff movies. Like, that whole monologue is hysterical. It's very funny. I think it's very funny, at least. Like, and it like I said, that goes back to the Pink Flamingos thing. That whole monologue at the end, it reminds me very much of like something you would see in early John Waters or an H.G. Lewis movie, like 2000 Maniacs. Like, it's completely bizarro world version of our own reality. And that's what I like about it. It's this exaggerated nightmare caricature of suburban America. And I find it a very amusing little film.
I want to remind people that after the show, we will be going into a watch party where J.G. and I will...
See, I'm worried about the watch party because I know some people didn't like Sleepaway Camp 3. I can only imagine what they'll think of this.
Oh, well, I put a warning on it. And I'll say it again. Look, this movie is not for everybody. It is a shot on video film. But again, I will add this very important caveat. If you like stuff like Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch, any found footage film, even if you liked the recent Late Night with the Devil, I think this fits in because you want to see something that looks a little older with a VHS style aesthetic, right? You want to feel like you're watching television in 1987. Well, here you go.
Right. I was gonna say too, I'm weird because like I've seen a lot of SOV stuff. Like there's this one called The Last Slumber Party that came out in 1990. It's like pretty awful. Like I've seen a lot of SOV, like it is not good. And maybe it's because of that I look at this one and I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. Because when you compare it to the other I know that's a low bar, but I having watched so many SOV movies, when I saw this one, I was like blown away. And you're right, the found footage thing, yeah, it's like it's doing Blair Witch before Blair Witch in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's
I think it's actually more fun to watch than Blair Witch.
Again, when I saw it, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, this reminds me of, and I look, I did not like Blair Witch. It was too long. I literally got nauseous.
It's too long at 1 hour and 20 minutes.
It is too long.
Not there's a 2-hour cut of it. Imagine watching that.
I don't know if you feel the same way about Blair Witch being too long. It felt too long. It's not everything needs to be an hour. There's these people
I always swear by the sequel, Book of Shadows. I love that movie.
There's these people that make these really funny black films on Tubi, and one of them is called African American Psycho, and they take kind of current topics. They took the Puffy court case, and made Puffy Patrick Bateman,
right?
And it's funny, but it's 40 minutes. It's perfect. You probably can make a 90-minute movie out of that premise. It won't be funny anymore. At 40 minutes, you can. It looks good. The acting is actually really good. I think the jokes all work. And it's over and done with before it gets too old.
Right.
Blair Witch to me was old 10 minutes in, and you're nauseous watching this camera shake. And
I get why people like Blair Witch. It's not I always liked The Last Broadcast, which came out like 2 years before. I thought that was like the most brilliant found footage movie of the 90s, but no one apparently knows about that one.
Didn't the Blair Witch people not know about that either?
No, I don't think they did. I don't want to rag. I mean, the Blair Witch, the people who did Blair Witch, I credit them. I mean, that was an incredible marketing campaign, And
dude, it's genius.
That Sci-Fi Channel movie they did is fucking great. Have you seen I think it was called Curse of the Blair Witch. It was the special they showed on Sci-Fi before the movie came out, and it feels like an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. It's amazing.
Well, and I watched a thing. There's a documentary on found footage films, and I think it's called Found Footage Films. and the Blair Witch guys are in it a lot because they talk about Ghost Story for the UK listeners, and
which I think came out before this, right?
Yes, it came out before, and they didn't know about it. And when they saw it, they were like, "Oh wow, this is really cool! Like if we would have known about this, maybe we would have made the Blair Witch." And I think they didn't know about Cannibal Holocaust either,
right?
Which
that's why I hesitate with like Ghost Story. I think came out in 81.
No, not the movie, or Ghost something, where there was a fake news thing about a ghost in the UK, and that came out in like 92, right. I thought.
I guess what I was getting at is it's not Video Violence is not the first movie to play with the found footage stuff, but
no,
it did it in a very interesting way.
Texas Chainsaw, to some degree, plays with the documentary.
Very cinema verte looking.
Ghost Watch. Thank you, Ben Grimm.
Ghost Watches. Thank Ben. I'm so glad you're watching. Ben's a friend from my horror movie discords and whatnot.
Ghost Watch, I believe, is at 92, 93, right? Yeah. So people are playing with this idea of using fake news, and I mean it in the very literal sense, to make this more interesting, because to me that's all that's left to do with the genre.
Right.
I don't know if you agree.
I don't know if that's all that there's left to do with the genre. You know what I hate it? I hate that Joss Whedon movie.
Which one?
Called Cabin
in the Woods?
Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that movie because it's such an obnoxious little movie saying like, "Oh, there's nothing left under the sun for horror." I don't think that's true. I think there's plenty of things that can be done with the horror genre. I think there's horror movies I've watched that I found very unnerving.
One of the
years.
scariest movies I watched recently, outside of stuff like Barbarian, that freaked me out. Late Night with the Devil didn't necessarily freak me out, but it freaked me out. Like I wasn't terrified. But I watched a movie called, I think it's called Abandoned. Okay. And when Shudder first started, they really opened up what was going to be called horror. And this movie, I don't know what it's classified under. It's a UK film, and it's about a young girl whose parents split up.
Right.
And her father is not mentally capable of dealing with her.
Yeah.
And she goes into, I think it's called council housing.
Right.
And the whole movie is kind of shot from her perspective of losing all of her security.
Right.
And kind of being forced into what I would think is frightening situations. If you're a kid and life is just normal, right? Whatever. And all of a sudden your parents get in a fight, your mom has a nervous breakdown, then your father's a nervous breakdown, and everyone in your world says, we can't deal with you. And now you're the ward of the state. And they kind of throw you into a house with a bunch of crazy people. At one point there's only like one other girl in the house that she's in, this kind of orphan home. And that girl's an older teenager who's having a sexual relationship with one of the workers in the room that she's in. So every night she escapes the house and tries to find her mom. To me, that's frightening. That is fear. And you watch that movie on the edge of your seat because you're hoping nothing happens to this child, as she's supposed to be like 6 or 7, trying to navigate these London streets on her own, also trying to navigate care facilities by herself. She doesn't have any help that she trusts. Having to trust strangers is really scary when you're 7. It's scary for me at 48. How scary is it at 7? But no one wants to look at that movie as horror. And there was kind of a backlash for Shudder to add that kind of film and say, no, this is scary too.
Well, yeah, I mean, people, that's like I was talking to my friend CHH about. He's big on saying is 90s thrillers horror movies.
I say,
and I would say most of them are. Like, I mean, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle was basically like a slasher, but for like people that had grown up by the time the 80s ended.
For true crime aficionados.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say too, I mean, it's not that I dislike Cabin in the Woods. I just dislike the smarminess of saying there's nothing left under the sun. You know, there could be no like new horror movies. It's just recycled bull crap all the time. I've seen horror movies that I find Screen Life movies are taking over the genre in a way that I'm not happy with. Have you seen War of the Worlds yet?
No. Have you? Did you watch it?
I turned it off, but
damn,
I just had to. Yeah. See, I would rather watch video violence than that.
Damn.
But I mean, there's horror movies I found freaky that have been made in the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years. You know, one that I got creeped out by was, have you seen It Follows?
Yes.
That scene with where she opens the door and her friend is at the door, and then you just see this tall dude with like blackened out eyes walk through, like really tall.
Yeah.
That like gave me nightmares.
You know,
I think there's still stuff you can do with it.
But I think what happens is people don't want to call the movie horror for whatever reason. Like, for example, Compliance, one of the most frightening movies you'll ever see. Maybe we'll watch it for a movie night coming up when I get back from the Bay Area.
I've seen Compliance.
Compliance is frightening to me because a lot of people, especially if you work in corporate America, for, let's say you work for McDonald's or Walmart or Target, if you work for a corporate store, you're so like, for a good example, perfect example, there's a video going viral where this big multinational store, I can't think of the name of it, is firing a young man that has mental difficulties, and he was eating the food at the store, and they were keeping track of how much he ate. I think he ate like $100 worth of food the store sold, and maybe he took some pens or something like that, and he got fired for it. When you work in those environments, sometimes common sense has to be taken out of the equation because you're being judged on everything. Oh, you didn't order enough of X. Your employees aren't, the hours they're working are going over this budget. Like there's so many things that you're scared of that when you hear, oh, so and so has been eating the leftover food, like at Starbucks, even if the food has passed its sell by date and it's still good. I don't know if they're still like this. You had to throw it away.
Right.
And I had asked them, I worked at a Starbucks and I asked the manager, I was like, I need to eat this. I can't afford to eat or buy this stuff, even with the little discount or whatever we get. And they were like, okay, well, we'll put a bag over the garbage. We'll put it in the garbage and you can take it that way. Like they wanted to go through that level. And who are you scared of? A magic manager coming in and checking on you? Like, what are you terrified of? But that's the level of fear people work in. And when you watch a movie like Compliance, and if you've worked in those environments, you understand why someone can go so far as to go, well, let's strip search the employee because my district manager's on the phone with the police and I don't want to lose my job over this because this is all I have. That to me is fear.
No, I get what you mean. I mean, I'll be honest, I still get jolted by like I know people look down on like, oh, the gore-filled horror. But I remember watching have you seen Brightburn, the James Gunn movie?
Ooh, the scary Superman, the real Superman.
Yes, yeah. This is going to sound dumb, but there's some ocular horror in that movie. Involved like the eye. Involved, someone gets like stabbed in the eye. But that stuff still gets me. And maybe this is because I'm a masochist, but I really enjoy getting jolted by a movie, And that movie did it for me because just any ocular horror just creeps me out, That's why Zombie is probably one of my favorite horror movies. The ship scene with
Fulci. That's Fulci, right?
Yeah, with the
Fulci
her
loves
eye
doing
is
that
getting.
shit.
But
Oh,
that stuff just like really it jolts you,
Yeah.
So I think there's still ways that horror can jolt people. I mean, it was fun seeing Terrifier 2 and 3 in theaters because I saw a lot of people get jolted.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when Terrifier 3 came out, that was crazy seeing that in theaters because there were kids going in, like 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. I'm not saying they should do this. I'm not justifying it, but they basically bought tickets to Wild Robot and then they went into Terrifier 3.
Hey, that's Freddy.
And the thing is, people say, oh, they shouldn't do that. We all did the same thing though as kids.
Yes, Freddy. It's Jason. Look, again, I have a Friday the 13th mug. I didn't get it at a sex shop or a scary store. I got it on the main boulevard in Tijuana because nobody is terrified of Terrifier. And you know who was scary for 5 seconds? Captain Howdy.
Right.
The stuff that's scary is stuff that didn't get sequels.
There is stuff that's more like fun horror. Like, are you a fan of Mike Dougherty's Trick or Treat?
I love Trick or Treat, the anthology.
Yeah, like everyone
Loved
loves
it.
Sam. How can you not love Sam?
Love Trick or Treat. Oh my God. I thought that was an entertaining, smart, fun horror anthology.
Yeah.
There's a few of those that have come out in the last 10 years or so where you're like, this is really fun. And I like watch fun and scary is different for me.
That's what I love about the genre though, is there's everything from a fun movie like Trick or Treat where you like cheer when they kill the kids that are picking on the autistic girl. I love that segment. I get so angry. I remember I cried the first time I watched. I was like so mad that they were like picking on her.
Because it was so good at being mean-spirited. Yeah. Right? Like it hit a certain nerve because you're like, damn.
And then when they finally get there, you're like, yeah.
Well, you know what also freaked me out about that? The serial killer principle.
Yeah.
That freaked me out. I didn't, not scared and freaked out is different, but I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
But that's what's so great. Maybe that's how, before we close out this episode, that's what I love about the genre is like, there's no limits to it. Like it's such an expansive genre that you can have something like video violence on one end, and it's so different than a haunting movie or, then there's like the fun horror of Trick or Treat. Then there's like the sort of unnerving horror of It Follows with the jump scares. And then there's the psychological horror that you mentioned with Compliance. It's like the sky's the limit.
If you want the sky to be a limit, and I think the problem that we have, and let's just be honest, is we live in a system where it's like, well, what slop do people want? We're going to give them more of that. So if it's A24 horror, let's give you a whole bunch. Let's give you lamb. Let's give you all kind of lambs.
See, but to be fair, it's always been that way. It really has.
Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned a lot of those companies I mentioned earlier. Like I said, I'm not bashing them, but companies like Tempe and Sterling, they had to make movies. It was a business. So just being able to fill out a tape and getting it on a shelf was victory. And I admire them for that, but these weren't movies they're disposable. They were meant to be disposable.
But that's the difference. We talked about this, well, not with you, but with Professor Alexander Herbert, who wrote a book about horror in the Soviet Union.
I have an interview with him that I still have to release. So I'll do it this Halloween.
Was it about movies?
Yeah.
Oh, because about horror movies.
Soviet horror, yeah.
Well, he's also a historian of that era, and you have a serious show, so you could have talked to him about like political economy. But my point is, and if you talk to Alex and you know this, when you watch those films of the Soviet Union, you're watching these beautiful kind of artsy horror films because the state is funding it, and it really is sky's the limit. Whatever you want to do, as long as it fits within what the state says is okay. With capitalist production, you get a few gems in the slot, a few people that go, I want to do something a little different. I want my take on this to be a little different. That to me is the big difference. That you get bombarded with bullshit, and in the bullshit there is going to be some quality gems. Oh no, you muted yourself.
No. I just wanted to let you speak. Yeah, I think you do get these quality gems. I think video violence is one of those. Within the context of, like I said, you have to judge a movie by the context. I'm not judging this movie in the same context I judge even like a movie like The Hills Have Eyes, the Wes Craven movie. I mean, it exists within its own world. And like I said, I felt like you didn't want to hit on this, but I do feel like it's much more of a dark comedy than a straight horror movie. If you watch the second one, you'll understand.
We're gonna let people. Not that I disagree. I'm not gonna sit here and disagree. I do not. I just people can see for themselves. We're gonna literally watch it with people. Let's go to that.
Fair enough.
And did you set it up for your patrons as well, JG?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I hope we have a fun-filled movie room watch party. I just promise me one thing when you guys come in the room: just get past the first 10 minutes because the sound is very uneven in the first 10 minutes. It really cleans up after then. I don't know if they were doing dailies or whatever, because he shot it in like a couple days.
I don't know how long it took. I think it was done over a few weeks, probably.
You think it's a few weeks?
Like weekends.
However long they did it in, you can tell at some point they realized, oh, we need to.
You know what's weird? I did not have this problem that you're talking about.
Watching it?
No, because the Blu-ray I have, the TerrorVision released, has like a DTS audio. I mean, they really put a lot of effort into making this look as good as possible for a Blu-ray. There's only so much you can do because it's shot on video. It's not going to look 1080p and it's not going to look 4K, right? But the audio track on mine sounded very good, to be honest.
It's just the beginning.
Also, did you notice the actress at the beginning?
No, I the white chick, the blonde that died.
Yeah, that's one of the chicks from All the Right Moves, the Tom Cruise movie. She's also in The New Kids with Lori Loughlin, that horror movie, the one with James Spader. And she's in Silent Madness, one of the lesser Halloween movies. She's actually, that was like, I think she's the only legit actress.
That movie.
You like Silent Madness? Yeah.
I do. Silent Madness is another one. I'm Madman. There's a couple movies that come out. Was that 90 or 89 those come out?
89.
Those movies that came out, they're hella slept on. I missed them. Yeah. I didn't watch them until a couple of years ago.
Well, hey,
and when I was like, oh, those are fun.
But before we go, I do want to plug something real quick because they're doing the rollout right now. I mentioned I got this Blu-ray from TerrorVision of Video Violence. So can I plug TerrorVision real quick? Because Brad does a lot of good work.
Can you get TerrorVision to, come on the show?
I want to do that. I have to email him again. I've been trying to get him, but anyways, we'll do it. But I think after he sees this, he'll appreciate it. Maybe he'll come on. So TerrorVision sort of splintered off from like Vinegar Syndrome. Some of the same people involved with Vinegar Syndrome are involved with TerrorVision. They release a lot of great stuff, and they're doing like a 13 weeks of Halloween. And they're announcing new titles every week leading up to Halloween. And the most recent titles they released, two really big ones, if you're a big fan of 80s horror, is Collector's Edition 4K of Student Bodies. Have you seen that?
Yep.
Yes, with Richard Belzer. It's like the ultimate parody of slasher movies. It's a scary movie before scary movie. And they also just announced Hide and Go Shriek, which that's a weird one that's like, it's a slasher movie with like kind of homophobic undertones that are uncomfortable, but it's also an interesting time capsule. But they're releasing a lot of good stuff. So if you go to, I think it's, terror-vision.com. And yes, I will try to get Brad on. Maybe we can do that for the Halloween season.
When did the movie TerrorVision come out? 84, 85?
I want to say 86. That was Ted Nicolai. And I think that was Empire. That was Charles Band.
Diane
this is separate
Franklin.
From all of that. But
yeah, Diane Franklin was in that. And she's been on the show. So
TerrorVision also does, they released the WNUF Halloween special, which is like a really great found footage movie. And another good found footage movie that just came out last year that they did was Frogman. So if you like found footage, TerrorVision is your place. And they do a lot of good stuff. They're coming up.
Are they the ones, or is it Vinegar Syndrome that's doing the VHSs?
I don't know if TerrorVision has done any VHSs yet.
Which I still think is insane to do. Another reason why you should support these people, because
Vinegar Syndrome's getting bigger. They're releasing stuff like The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy.
Look, props to them for doing that, because
that's that's great too. I'm happy with
Eddie Murphy movies. But what I'm saying is, artists, if they want to beat streaming, you have to release physical media that people want to purchase.
Yeah.
Period. Point blank. Right. That's the only way you're going to make real money. What is it? 400 physical copies of a vinyl is the equivalent of 1 million streams.
Right.
And back in my day, a small regional artist could sell 10,000 copies of an album. So people love collecting vinyl, and I've even seen people buy cassettes. That's the only way you're going to do it. And these kind of interesting VHS, Blu-ray DVDs with all the special accoutrements, T-shirts and mugs and patches and stickers. More power to them, and support them, because they're doing something. You can actually own media. You know how hard it is to find stuff on streaming sites because of rights issues?
Well, you know what's great about TerrorVision, not to plug them too much, but a lot of their stuff you can find in like Walmart. So.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. That Walmart still is one of the few doing physical media, but I know someone found a copy of Rumpelstiltskin that TerrorVision put out at Walmart. And Rumpelstiltskin, if you haven't seen that, it's like 10 times better than Leprechaun. Go watch it.
I do remember Rumpelstiltskin. There's a big star. Who's the big star in Rumpelstiltskin? The person leaves that movie and goes on to do big Hollywood stuff. I can't remember who.
I actually don't know.
We have to go see. Okay, well, look, we're gonna go watch the movie.
Okay.
You want to do it? If you're a patron of J.G., be one. If you're not yet, join his.
Sorry to anyone offended by my cigarette smoking.
If you're offended by cigarette smoking, then you shouldn't watch this channel. That's for you. If that's what offends you, then you are a lightweight, and you probably should go listen to Pod Save America.
So watch the Google Watch and visit terror-vision.com. That's my last words.
And we will see you guys at the watch party. We are out.